The wide plains of Texas stretched endlessly beneath a golden sky, where the setting sun painted streaks of fire and blood across the horizon. In the distance, a lone rider galloped along the edge of the ranch lands, his silhouette framed by the dust cloud, his horse's hooves kicked up. That rider was Jebediah Colt, the wealthiest cowboy in the county, owner of a ranch so vast it swallowed valleys and rivers whole. A man with more cattle than most towns had people, and a name whispered with awe or envy, depending on who spoke it. But despite his fortune and strength, Jebediah Colt carried a loneliness heavier than his saddlebags full of gold. Suitors, both women and families with ambitions, had chased him for years. Elegant widows, bold debutantes, sly matchmakers, and even desperate fathers seeking security for their daughters had all paraded across his life like moths to a flame, and every single one of them had been turned away. Jebediah wasn't cruel. He simply refused. His heart had long ago locked itself in a vault sealed with grief, and he had no intention of letting anyone steal its key. For all his rugged charm and broad-shouldered strength, he had come to believe that love was not for him. A wife was a burden, romance was a distraction, and companionship, well, he told himself it was unnecessary. Yet the townsfolk talked. They whispered in the saloon, muttered in the church pews, and laughed on front porches. "What kind of man builds an empire but can't build a home?" they said. "Money can buy him cattle and land, but who will cry at his grave?" Such words stung Jebediah more than he admitted. He drowned his thoughts in work, branding cattle at dawn, chasing thieves at night, and buying land faster than anyone could keep count. The world thought he had everything. He knew he had nothing. One scorching afternoon the pattern broke. The courthouse in town was full that day, a case involving Jebediah's ranch and a dispute over stolen horses. People crowded inside, not only to hear the proceedings, but to catch sight of the untouchable Cowboy himself. He entered dressed in a dark vest, dusty boots, and a stare that silenced every whisper. His enemies avoided his gaze, his supporters tipped their hats, and the women of the town straightened their dresses, hoping, perhaps foolishly, that this time he might notice them. But what caught Jebediah's eye was not one of the polished ladies fanning themselves in the gallery. It was a poor girl who stepped nervously to the front of the room, clutching a tattered shawl around her shoulders. Her name was Clara Dawson, daughter of a penniless farmer who had lost his land years ago. Clara had no wealth, no family standing, and no polished reputation. She was, in every way that mattered to society, invisible, but her courage shone brighter than silk gowns. The judge demanded witnesses to the theft, and Clara, though trembling, raised her hand. She spoke in a voice clear enough to silence the murmurs. "I saw what happened. Your Honor, I ain't afraid to tell the truth, no matter who don't like it." Her testimony cut through lies like a blade, and when she turned briefly toward Jebediah, her gaze was steady, not in awe of his fortune, not hungry for his attention, but honest and plain as the open sky. When court adjourned, Jebediah found himself walking alongside her outside. He meant only to thank her for her courage. But Clara, bold in her simplicity, stopped him with words that would change everything. "You've turned away every woman who's offered you her hand," she said, looking him in the eye with the frankness of someone who had nothing to lose. "But I ain't here to offer you pretty promises or a painted smile. You need a wife or you need a witness." The question struck him like a thunderclap. No one had ever spoken to him that way. Not the ambitious daughters of rich men, not the scheming widows, not the mothers trying to barter a future. A wife or a witness? He had never thought of it in those terms. Jebediah chuckled at first, thinking she must be jesting. But Clara stood her ground, unflinching, her thin frame somehow carrying the weight of an iron spirit. Something stirred in Jebediah that day, a flicker he thought had been extinguished long ago. That was the beginning. The days after the courthouse encounter settled into Jebediah's mind like embers, refusing to die out, glowing hotter the more he tried to smother them. Clara Dawson had returned to her meager life at the edge of town, patching clothes for pennies, drawing water from a cracked well, and caring for her ailing father in a cabin barely standing, against the prairie winds. Yet her words haunted him. A wife or a witness? She had not batted her lashes or angled for wealth. She had challenged him with a truth sharper than any blade. Jebediah, who had refused countless suitors, now found himself riding past the old Dawson cabin more often than reason required, telling himself it was coincidence, though deep down he knew it was not. He noticed how Clara worked from dawn till dusk, sleeves rolled, hair uncombed, hands blistered, yet she moved with a kind of quiet pride, as though dignity itself had chosen to live in her instead of in grand estates. The townsfolk noticed his distraction. Whispers spread that the richest man in the county was circling around a poor farmer's daughter. Some scoffed at the absurdity. Some sneered that Clara was a schemer in plain clothes. And some, mostly the women who had once hoped to wear Jebediah's ring, fumed with jealousy that a girl of dirt and rags could catch his attention where they had failed. But Clara paid no mind. She did not chase him. She did not bow. If he spoke to her while she carried buckets of water, she answered politely and kept walking. If he tipped his hat, she acknowledged it with no more weight than a passing breeze. For a man accustomed to admiration, it was maddening, and strangely, it was the very reason he kept returning. One evening, under a sky painted in lavender dusk, Jebediah finally dismounted his horse outside her cabin and spoke plainly. "Clara Dawson," he said, his voice low, "you've unsettled me. I've turned away wealthier, prettier, smoother women than I can count. But when you spoke to me in that courthouse, I heard honesty I can't forget. So tell me again, and tell me true, what did you mean by asking if I need a wife or a witness?" Clara set down the firewood she carried, wiped her brow, and met his eyes. "I meant just what I said. Mr. Colt, every woman chasing you wants to wear your name like a crown, to stand in your house like it's their prize. They want to be your wife for what it gives them. But what good is a wife who won't stand witness to the man himself? Who won't tell you the truth when you need it, even if it stings? You don't need someone to warm your bed. You need someone to stand by your side when the whole town talks against you, or when your heart goes cold on lonely nights. That's a witness, and that's rarer than gold." Her words struck deeper than bullets. In that moment, Jebediah saw the difference. Every suitor before had seen his ranch. Clara saw his soul. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the night wind rattling the shutters. Then Jebediah spoke, almost in a whisper. "And would you be that witness?" Clara laughed softly, not mocking, but incredulous. "Me? I'm just a poor girl with a sick father and no dowry but my own 2 hands. I can't give you land or cattle. All I can give is truth. If that's enough, then maybe." Jebediah felt something shift inside him, a thaw where ice had long reigned. For the first time, he did not feel like the wealthiest cowboy. He felt like a man, stripped of pride, asking for something more precious than fortune. And so began a bond not built on riches, but on raw truth.